for me.
Okay, excellent, perfect. Okay, it's also perfectly 2 o'clock now, so we can start officially. Yeah. So good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Today is a real pleasure to have Renato Portugal as a speaker in our Friday webinar series. Renato very kindly invited me last year to join the Brazilian Quantum Computing, I don't remember the exact title, conference, which was really very nice. And we hope that he will come and visit us next year. Yeah. Renato is based at the National Laboratory of Scientific Computing, yeah, which is probably very close to what we are. Yeah. And some of you might know him because he wrote a very nice book on quantum walks and search algorithms, yeah? And also a very nice introduction to basic quantum algorithm that was published a few years ago, not so long ago, yeah, that I use for some of my lectures. So thank you very much, Renato, for that. It was a really very nice summary and introduction to quantum computing. Yeah. And today he will speak about gate-based quantum genetic algorithms for real-valued global optimization. Yeah. Renato, thank you very much for taking the time to share your latest results with us. We are really looking forward to the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Francisco. Thank you for the invitation. It is very nice, very kind to present this talk here. So, as Francisco has said, this is a gate-based quantum genetic algorithm for real-valued global optimization. The authors are Leandro Souza from UFPB, northeast of Brazil, Lohan Dardenne and myself. We are both at LNCC. So we have just put this paper on the archive around 2 weeks ago. So what I want to show is I'm going to start with a review on classical genetic algorithm for global optimization, and then discuss some benchmark functions like restrigine and others, and then present our quantum genetic algorithm model, which uses circuits as individuals. Then I describe the circuit space, initialization, fit and operator, and so on. And then we show the results that are promising. So I'm going to try to show you that superposition and entanglement improves quantum genetic algorithm. So this is my goal in this talk. So feel free to interrupt me if you want, okay? What is the problem that we wish to solve? Is global minimization of real variable functions. So we have a function from R to M to R with real variables. And we want to implement the calculation of this function to solve the problem using circuits. So when we use circuit to find the optimal solution of this problem, the value of X, which gives the minimum value of F, we run the circuit and we get a bit string. Then we have to convert this bit string into a real variable. So we have to do an encoding following this formula described here. So for instance, Z is the bit string. If Z is 0, we get the result A, which is the left-hand side of the range of the interval, and this is the real number. If Z is 2 to power n minus 1, we get B, which is the right-hand side of the interval. So we to encode in this way. And in this case, we have a resolution that is given by the number of qubits that we are using for each variable. And the resolution must be small enough so that if the function oscillates, the resolution must be smaller than the waves there in the function. So to get things really simply described, these are examples of functions that I'm going to try to minimize in the experimental part. At the end, I'm going to show you some experiments obtained from simulations. So this is the rest gene function with two variables. The number of variables is chosen by the user. You can have one variable, two, or m variables. Here, most of the experiments that we have run use the two variables. This is the plot of rustic gene function with two variables. You can see that there are lots of oscillation, a lot of global minima, and the global minimum is at x and y equals 0. And the value of the function at that x and y is 0. In all those functions of this benchmark, Rastrigian, Ackley, Spear, Rosenbrock, Griewonk, and others, there are over 30 functions that we can use to test the genetic algorithm. The global minimum is at f of x equals 0. So the problem that we want to solve described here at the beginning, we want to find that x star that minimizes the function. So I'm going to give a very short review on classical genetic algorithm. So in the classical genetic algorithm, we have an individual, which we call chromosome, that will represent the solution. For instance, classically, we consider the value of the variable itself as the individual, as the chromosomes. And the bits of that chromosomes are the genes. In the classical genetic algorithm, we have initially a population, think about 50 individuals of this kind, and then we sort those individuals using the value of the function. So we want to minimize the function. F of x that is smaller is better. So we sort them and put the best individuals at the beginning with smallest f. Then the algorithm enters in an evolutionary cycle. We need to do that selection based on that sorting. We choose the best ones to do the crossover. Crossover means that we select two parents and then they combine and produce two childs, and the childs replace the parents. After doing the crossover, we do the mutation of the genes. So we change at random the value of the genes. And in the classical case, the genes are either 0 or 1, you change 0 to 1 or vice versa. And then this finish one generation after doing crossover and mutation, and then you start over to the next generation, resort again and do it all over again. And the number of iteration is the number of generations that you have. At the end, you have a final population, you sort again, and then you choose the best individual of the final population. And this is the value of x that we plug into function f, and with the hope of finding the optimal solution or close to the optimal solution. Now, let me move to our proposal of quantum genetic algorithm. There are a few papers on the literature about quantum genetic algorithms, so there are not a lot of novelties in this proposal. We are using quantum circuit as an individual. So one individual is a quantum circuit. How many qubits does this circuit has? We use n qubits for each variable, and we have m variables. So the number of qubits is m times n. The genotype of this individual is the description of the circuit. So are the gates of the circuits. And the phenotype is the expression of the individual. So is the output of the circuit, which is the value of the variables. We are going to draw the gates of this circuit from a fixed gate set. So we are going to use two kinds of gate sets. A quantum gate set that is described here has polymates, Hadamard, ST, Synod, Swap, Toffoli, Fredkin. And if we remove H from this gate set, what happens is that there will be no superposition during the evolution of the state. So we are going to do classical computing. We are select those two gate sets because we want to compare quantum with classical. So classical means there is no superposition. There are two kinds of analysis that we are going to do with circuits with fixed depth and variable depth. This means fixed depth, we select a population, all the individuals in this population has fixed depth, for example, D layers, and the mutation, crossover, and so on does not change the depth of the circuit. At the end, after all the generations, we still have circuits with D layers. Variable depth, we initialize the population with many different depths, and during the crossover and the mutation, the depth of those circuits can change. And in both cases, we do selection, crossover, mutation, and proceed the number of generation as is usual in quantum in the genetic algorithm. So here is an example of an individual. You are looking at an individual. In this case, we chose 3 qubits for each variables. And here I have 2 variables, X and Y. So that's why I divided here simply for us to see better. The input is fixed, but arbitrary, can be any state of the computational basis. So you can see that all those gates were drawn from that quantum gate set. We have Hadamard, S, phase gate, T gate, Toffoli, Fredkin gate, and so on. And then we perform a measurement, and then we get a result that will be our value of the variable. This draw here looks clumsy, but I did in this way so that we can easily check here what is the depth of this circuit, simply counting the number of layers of this circuit. If we have a quantum circuit, there is a probability distribution associated with that circuit. So this is the correct probability distribution associated with the previous example. So we have to split here in the middle, because the first one is the probability distribution for the X variable, and the second one for the y variable. So here there is an average here that I'm going to talk about in the next slide. Let me skip this slide. This slide, yeah. I still did not describe correctly what is the phenotype of the individual. The correct phenotype is not one measure, but is the average of some number of shots, n shots. So what we do, in fact, we run each circuit certain number of shots. In our experiments were 1,024 shots. For each shot, we get a bit string, we encode it into a real variable, and then we have a bunch of real variables, and then we calculate the average, and then we obtain this X star. This is the phenotype of the individual. So the output, in fact, we consider as the average of the values of the output, not one single output. And then we plug this in the function that we want to minimize. This is our fitness function. The fitness function or objective function is the function that we want to minimize. Smaller, better. The minimum value is 0. So let me go back here. So what matters here is really the average of the probability distribution. So this is going to be the phenotype of the individual, the average for X and the average for Y when we have two variables here. Here I'm explaining in the case of two variables. So if we have this average, the phenotype being the average, we can define a distance between two individuals. Consider individual U and individual V. Those are the unitary operators associated with each circuit. And then we can calculate the probability distribution associated with each of them, and then calculate the average. So this part here is the average associated with the individual U, and here with the individual V. So we calculate the difference between those average and calculate the modulus. This is the distance between two individuals. Now we have a space that is a circuit space, a space of circuits on m times n qubits. And we have the notion of distance of those circuits using this average. So we have a sort of a metric space. In fact, it is not a metric space because it is possible to have two individuals that are different, but with the same average. So their distance the distance is going to be 0. So this is called pseudometric space, not really a metric space. But this is the space, mathematical space, where the algorithm is going to process. Just to recap, we have a population that are circuits drawn at random from this circuit space, uniformly at random. We are going to do experiments with those two classical gate sets. The gates are going to be drawn from either the quantum set or the classical set. We have two cases that we analyze: fixed depth quantum genetic algorithm. All circuits has depth D, and we have analyzed also the variable depth quantum genetic algorithms. So the goal of these, the ideas here is to promote structural and behavioral diversity while controlling circuit complexity. Oh, that's a very good sentence from AI. That's impressive. So let's go on. This one I have already talked about. So now I have to give you the details. How the crossover works, how the mutation works, and so on. So how the evolution proceeds. So we select a population, drawing circuits at random from the circuit space. And then we evaluate each circuit using that average that I talked before, and then calculate f of x star for each circuit, and then we can rank all the circuits of the population and we can sort them. And then we use the elitism. And the idea is to keep the top P elite fraction unchanged for the next generation and produce childs that are going to be included in the population. Then in the next step, we do the crossover. We select the parent pairs to produce the offsprings. And the idea is that the offspring inherit gate patterns from both parents. And if the circuit is giving you a good solution, the childs are going to inherit this good property. And what mutation does? Then we applied random gate changes to each offspring. We keep the elite unchanged, and this mutation can modify strongly the circuit's output. So if we think in terms of the circuit space, we have a circuit, an individual in that space. When we do mutation on this individual by randomly changing part of the gates, that individual is going to jump to a place very far in that circuit space. So crossover makes the fine adjustment of the individuals that are close to the solution are going to be even closer, while mutation does big jumps in the circuit space. So mutation is important to escape from local minimum, while crossover is important to adjust the value of X so that it goes even closer to the global minimum. And then we have this cycle, the evolutionary cycle, and the idea is what I'm talking about was to do exploitation and exploration. So exploitation means you have to get what is of best of your individual. Exploration means you go to regions of the circuit space that was not explored before. So those two crossover operators, genetic genetic operators do those kinds of exploitation and exploration. So now let me delve into details of the crossover operator. The description here is very large. Instead of reading all those lines here, let me go back here. Let me show the individual. So let me try to explain using this individual. So this is one individual. Think of two individuals like those. So you can put one individual up and the above and the other below. think of those two parents. What is crossover? We select at random one layer, and then we interchange those two layers, and then we produce two childs. This is one of the methods that we use as crossover. So why this method is interesting? First, imagine that the layer that we have interchanged is at the beginning of the individual. If we change, and suppose that this individual is a good one, so the value of the average value that the output is very close to the global minimum. And then we change here the one of the layers at the beginning of the individual. What's going to happen? The other layers are going to amplify the change that those initial layers of the initial layer. This means that the average of this individual is going to change very much. Is this bad? No, not necessarily. But suppose, on the other hand, that we have chosen a layer at the end, for instance, the last layer. So if we interchange the last layers of those two parents, the last layer is going to produce only a small change in the average of the individual. So if that individual is already close to the good solution, it can be even closer. So why this is important? Because we have a large population, and when we do the crossover with that larger population, some of the parents are going to exchange layers at the beginning, some of the parents are going to exchange layers at the end, and therefore some of the childs will improve the average so that it becomes even closer to the best one. There are more details that I can come back later and talk more about that. We implement other variation of the crossover that are important also, but let me postpone this discussion. So let me go to mutation. Mutation. So what does the mutation operator? So each gate of the individual is a gene, and the genes mutate with probability p mut. So what is mutation? Is a random gate replacement. Not all of them. We select a percentage of that using that global hyperparameter p mut. So a percentage of the gates are going to be randomly replaced. So there are many cases. We can have gates that are replaced by gates of the same arity. One qubit gate can be changed at random to another one qubit gate, or 1 to 2, 1 to 3, and vice versa, 2 to 1, 2 to 3. So the arity can change, and there are a lot of details that we have to choose how to implement that in the experiments. In the fixed depth case, the mutation preserves the layer structure. Why? What does that mean? The identity gate is in our set. So if a whole layer of gates are changed at random to identity, this means that the depth is going to change. So we do not allow this with the fixed depth case. But with the variable depth case, we allow the individual to change the depth. So the idea of the mutation operator is to promote the global exploration of the circuit space. What is the termination criteria of the algorithm? The evolution is stopped after a fixed number of generations. So recall that one generation means you have a population, sort, crossover, mutation, and that ends one generation. And then you have to start over with the new population. So Gmax is a global hyperparameter that we choose. We want the algorithm to stop as soon as possible. So it's not a good idea to select a large Gmax. But when we select a large number of generation, we get even closer to the global minimum. So in fact, there is a trade-over between the size of the population and the number of generations. So if we choose a very large population, the number of generations can be small, and vice versa. If the population is not that large, we have to do more and more generations. In our experiments, we have chosen those hyperparameters. So we have used 8 qubits for each variable. We tried less than that. We tried 3 qubits per variable in those experiments. We did not succeed. And then the minimum for those functions of the benchmark function that we use, we need 8 qubits per variable. So recall that here the circuit size is going to increase, and we have done experiments with 2 variables. It means that our individuals were using 16 qubits. The circuit depth varied between 1 and 10. The mutation rate was 30%, crossover rate 70%, elitism 20%, number of shots 1,024. And then typically in our experiment, we used 50 individuals, and generations went from 10 to 200. So having said that, we can go to the results. So all experiments were performed through classical simulation. We have here a simulator, an Atos simulator that simulates up to 38 qubits. We use this simulator to produce the results. We used implementation in Qiskit. All circuits were implemented in Qiskit. And we have to run each circuit 1,024 times to calculate the average to know the phenotype of the individual. This is the only quantum part of the algorithm, is in the moment that we evaluate the individual. All the other parts are done classically. So the crossover and the mutations are done classically to generate the next population and to the process in order to the process to start over. So the benchmarks, I'm going to show more only the restricted gene function, results for the restricted gene function, but we have done the same experiments with sphere, Ackley, Green-Wank, and Rosenbrock, and many others functions with the same results. The results were very, very similar. In the first result, I'm going to try to show that superposition improves the genetic algorithm. Okay, so the classical set has no H. We removed also T and S because T and S are diagonal operators that they only produce phases and do not produce superposition. And they are completely unnecessary in the classical case. All the gates of the quantum sets, Toffoli, Predikin, Synod, Swap, etc., are diagonal gates. The only one that is not diagonal is the Hadamard gate. So that's why if we remove the Hadamard gate, there will be no superposition. The input will be a state of the computational base. I'm going to run the circuit, and the output is going to be a state of the computational base. There is not going to be a superposition. So here is the first set of results. So what we see here, in the y-axis, we have the fitness. So recall that smaller is better, okay? On the x-axis, I have the circuit depth. So it goes from 1 till 10. So how this will obtain those dots here? We choose, for instance, depth 10, and then we initialize a population with circuits of depth 10. Everything goes with depth 10. Crossover mutation keeps depth 10. We run the complete sequence of the genetic algorithm, and then we find the best individual, and then we calculate the fitness of best individual, and then we plug here the result. So this result here is for 10 generation, this one for 30, that's 50. This is 10, 30, 50 generation. So red is classical. Blue is quantum. So we have done that for each fixed depth, the 9, 8, and so on. So I have described here what is this plot. Now let's go, and it was using the rest-tree gene function with two values. Now let's see what are the conclusions that we draw. Let me know if you are with me. Quantum is better than classical. You can see that all the blue curves are below the red curves. Those curves are smooth because we have to repeat that many times to get smooth curves. Around over 5,000 repetitions to get really smooth curves. And then after 5,000 repetitions, the curves does not change no more. Then this is the result. So the first conclusion is that quantum is better than classical. The other conclusion that we can draw from here is that when we start with depth, the small depth, the result is not that good. And when we increase the depth, becoming better. There is a sort of plateau here in the quantum case. In the classical case, it improves when we increase the depth, and suddenly it becomes even worse. This is probably a consequence of the fact that classical circuits with large depths are too complex for the algorithm to find the best solution, and it means that we need more generations if we have population 50. So this is the first step of reaching my goal here. Quantum is better than classical. This plot here is also interesting. So in the y-axis, I have again fitness. On the horizontal axis, I have the Shannon entropy of the probability distribution. So here, how to obtain one of that cross here? I run the complete generations of, and then select the best one, and then calculate the fitness, and then I also calculate the Shannon entropy of the probability distribution of that best individual. When you have individual, you can calculate the state of the output, and then there is a probability associated with that quantum state, and then you plug that probability distribution into the Shannon formula, and then you calculate the Shannon entropy, and then you put the cross in the correct place, and then I repeat that over and over. Here there are 5,000 crosses, so the experiment were repeated 5,000 times for the quantum case. For the classical case, we also repeated 5,000 times, but all results are necessarily with zero Shannon entropy, because the output is a quantum state with only one state. This means that Shannon entropy is zero. So here, when we perform the 5,000 classical, we get all of them equal to zero, and here we simply put the average. Instead of put 5,000 red marks here, I put the average. So the average is here. So we can see that in our case, we got a good distribution of probability distributions of individuals. We only obtained this good distribution because, let me go back here, because the first layer here is an exception. There are only Hadamard gates. What we do is first choose a random number between 0 and the number of qubits, and then we put a bunch of Hadamards here to produce more superposition. So if we don't put this special layer here, we are going to get a displacement of all Shannon entropy into zero. In fact, there is a theorem that shows that random circuits, when you keep enlarging the number of qubits, the Shannon entropy tends to zero. So this is a good requirement to put this special layer here. So let me go back. So now this is the result for variable depth quantum genetic algorithm. So I initialize the population with variable depth, and then repeat everything, but now crossover and mutation are a little bit different, so that it is allowed to change the depth of the circuit. So what this plot is about? It is a log-log plot. In the vertical axis, I have log of fitness, and the horizontal axis, I have log of the number of generations. So what are the conclusions here? Blue is quantum. Red is classical without Hadamard. Again, quantum is better than classical. But not only that. In the log-log plot, we can see a straight line here for the classical result. This means that if we go on with that straight line is going to cross the horizontal x somewhere, and this means that the precise solution of the problem will be found. But it is going to need a lot of generations. Let us look at the quantum result. there is a straight line at the beginning, but the quantum case seems to accelerate, is greedy, accelerates toward to find the best solution. So when we enlarge the number of generation, the quantum genetic algorithm become even better than the classical genetic algorithm. So I'm going to skip this. We did not a lot of analysis because we have thousands and thousands of individuals to analyze what is happening. We need a lot of auxiliary plots. I'm going to skip also these, and I want now to go to the next goal of the talk, that is to prove that entanglement is better. And now I'm going to compare quantum with quantum. In the previous comparison, I was comparing quantum with classical, but the classical was classical circuits, and that is not what is really considered a classical genetic algorithm. So there is some weakness in that comparison. But here now, here is quantum with quantum. What we do, what we are going to do now. So we have a population here that are not entangled. And then we run as before in the variable depth case. And in the right-hand side, what we do, before starting the genetic algorithm, we entangle the individuals. So here we entangle pairwise entanglement at random. So, and then we run as before the same algorithm that we run for the first case. And then we are going to compare now the fitness plot. Here we have entangled only 2 circuits because the simulation is very heavy. When we entangle individuals, we have to run simulate both together. We have to put the first individual together with the second individuals. Then we get 32 qubits, and then the individuals are entangled, maximally entangled, and the simulation becomes even heavy. So let me show you the result. The result is the following. Blue is with entanglement between the individuals. Red is without entanglement between the individuals. Recall that there are entanglements inside the individual in the red case. See, if you recall that circuit that I've showed to you, there are Toffoli gates there, even between 2 variables. So there are entanglements inside the individual, but there is no entanglement between the individuals. In the blue case, there is entanglement. So the simulation here shows that entanglement improves the convergence, mainly in the beginning of the algorithm for a small number of generations. So this is a numerical proof that entanglement improves quantum genetic algorithm. So I'm going to leave some time for questions, and so what we showed here of important is that the quantum effects improves genetic algorithm, and there is a lot of novelties because all papers on quantum genetic algorithms do not implement crossover. If you look at them, you can see there is no crossover at all in all those papers. There are a few papers. The number of papers in quantum genetic algorithm is much smaller than in quantum neural networks. Quantum neural networks, we are speaking about thousands of papers, 10,000s. In quantum genetic algorithm, we are speaking of dozens of papers. There are around 30, 40 at most. And all of them does not use crossover. They didn't know how to do crossover. So the conclusions are, we have tested the benchmark functions for our quantum genetic algorithm models. Quantum circuits explore more effectively higher entropy and lower fitness. Variable depth adapt circuit complexity during evolution. We made consistent performance analysis across raster gene, sphere, Ackley, Greenwald, Rosenberg functions. And the conclusions were that superposition improves convergence and final fitness. Entanglement between individuals of the population further enhances convergence quality. So the conclusion is superposition and entanglement drive quantum genetics superior performance. AI really good to generate this kind of sentence. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Renato. It was a great talk. And I saw that there were a few questions in the chat. And maybe, Eleanor, if you want to unmute yourself and switch on your video, you can ask your questions in person to Renato.
Thank you so much for the very interesting talk and the very important conclusions. I was wondering, with regards to the details of the genetic algorithm, first of all, I understand correctly that the genetic algorithm in itself is a classical genetic algorithm, and the quantum is the quantum circuit. The quantum part is the quantum circuit. Okay. And then how did you do parent selection?
We have a population, and then we sort the best ones. We use some global hyperparameters. Let me show you. So this is the elitism. So we select 20% of the best circuits. Those are going to be the parents. And then we make the crossover between them. So this is the way of selecting the parents by the 20% best individuals.
So elitism is also going to the next generation, but also the parent selection is elitism as well.
Yeah. So and then the best parents are kept, but the remaining ones are replaced by childs
of the elitism.
Yeah, and then the population is sorted again. So a child can go in front of a parent.
Okay, so a child has a better chance of being selected, even if it scores worse.
If it scores worse, it is going to be there. But in the next generation, when we sort, a bad child will be at the end.
Okay.
And probably in other generations, that child will be forgotten.
Oh, okay. And then the last question that I wanted to ask you is, have you tried on higher dimension of those functions?
The simulation is very heavy. So all those experiments last days. because of the number of repetitions that we have to do in order to get smooth curves. This is consequence of the fact that we have chosen discrete gate set. If we put parameterized gate sets, things become very smooth quickly. But we decided for the discrete gate set because this is a novelty. All other papers are using parameterized gate sets. We are not using. So the simulation is very heavy. We intend to do simulation with more variables, but as far we can go right now is 2 variables. We have studied this method of quantum algorithm because we want to apply to drug design. And in our case, we need 8 variables because the objective function that we have there in drug design, when you have that docking, a molecule must dock into a pathogen, and there is a objective function related with that docking. And this is more complex, this objective function, and the number of variables is 8 in the group that I'm collaborating here. So we want to go to 8 variables, but that's future work.
I see. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Any questions? No, Renato, you mentioned that the application you have in mind is docking of of molecules. That's really very interesting. And have you thought of other applications in a biological context?
That problem that we are addressing is minimization, to find global minimization of function. So that problem is very general. It has many applications. If you have a problem with objective function, you can simply take this algorithm that I have presented and use your objective function. So it's quite general, isn't it? So it's a matter of changing the objective function. And you use the same strategy that I have described here. So the question is, does your problem has an objective function? Do you want to minimize or find a global minimum of some function? If the answer is yes, you can use this method. You can use this quantum genetic algorithm.
Yeah, and did I understand it correctly? You only used a simulator for the quantum computer. You didn't use a proper quantum computer so far.
Yeah, if I would use the quantum computer, there will be errors involved. Then the analysis will be a little bit harder, and probably the errors are going to destroy some of those results. For example, if you have entangled individuals, and if you put errors, this means that they are going to be less entangled. So all those curves are going to be closer. Errors, probably, I didn't do it, but I believe that errors are going to destroy part of those results here. They are going to become worse. I can run simulation with errors. This is also future work. But we haven't run on quantum computing. We haven't run because to run you have to pay, and it takes a lot of work, pay a lot, and you get a lot of errors. So you pay for the errors. You pay to get bad results. That's not a clever choice. To buy a quantum computer or to use quantum computers nowadays is not a very clever idea, unless you want to study the impact of errors. So if you run a quantum computer, you get errors. I hate those errors. I don't like it. Computers that you at the end, if you have a long circuit, you get only errors, like in quantum walks. If you implement a quantum walk circuit, quantum walks the depths are really high, 1,000, 2,000 layers. You get only errors. You get nothing there. So that's why we haven't run. But I hope that in a few years, the quantum computers becoming better.
I know, we hope that's so too. Yeah. Okay, we have a last chance for questions. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just had a question that is related to the lady that asked the question on the selection of parents.
Yeah.
During the selection of parents, is fertility taken into consideration? Because here you want to create offspring. Like, what criteria is it actually for the best parents?
Can you repeat? Is a little bit broke. The
Speak louder because the microphone is far away from you.
Oh,
it's too far. Can you come closer? It's broke.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Prof.
I don't mean come to Brazil, but a little bit closer.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question that is related to the previous question that was asked by the lady. I don't know. Yes. Regarding selection of parents, is fertility used to select the parents that you need to create the offspring, or what other criteria do you use to select the best parents? What is this best parent that we're talking about in this case?
Yeah, you have an initial population. When you have that initial population, you don't know what are the best ones until you evaluate, you run all the circuits. So you have to run all the circuits 1,024 times, find that average, and then I have an association between an individual and its average. So the average is a real number. And what I do then, I sort the individuals using that average. So I can know what are the best individuals. The best individuals will be the ones that have an average, so that when you plug into the fitness function, you get the smallest value. Then I can sort the individuals. I select 20% of them that produce the average that are closest to the best solution of the problem of the fitness. Those are going to be the parents, only those that are going to reproduce. So after select that 20%, then I interchange that columns. Why do that? Because those 20% are the ones that are very close to the global minimum. Maybe some of them are close to a local minimum. That's not a problem. The population is large enough, and things will go well in the next generation. So that's the idea, to choose the best parents, because when we interchange the layers, mainly the layers at the end of the circuit, those childs will have an average even closer to the correct solution. So this strategy is very important, because if you use only mutation, you are doing, in fact, a kind of random search. And random search is not good at all. So you have to take advantage of circuits that are close to the solution. And that's the whole idea of genetic algorithm, is based on the evolution of species. So species that are well adapted, they produce childs that could be even better adapted. They also produce childs that are not well adapted. Okay, they live for some time, but unfortunately, they are going to be eliminated in the continuation of the family. So those childs that have even better average, they are going to survive, because in the next generation, I'm going to sort the population again. So that child that have a better average, it goes to the 20% part. It becomes a member of the elite. So they are going to survive, and they can survive for more generations. But even them can be eliminated, because you are not going to eliminate only the individual that hits the exact solution. But usually we stop before hitting the exact solution. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. I get the view that it uses like a series of steps, sampling averages, and not really just randomizing the thing, as you said. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, Renato, then thank you so much for a great talk. Yeah, and it was really very interesting, and we hope to read that preprint soon. Yeah, that will be very interesting. Yeah. And please, let us stay in touch, and let's make a plan for you to visit us next year. That will be really very nice. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you again for the invitation, Francesco.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
To talk to you.
It was really very great. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And have a good weekend and a good festive season and a nice conference next week. Yeah.
You too.
Thank you. Bye. 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 All the best.